we're going to take a close look at marriage. If you aren't married, you're still most welcome to attend. There's a number of pastors of us here. We could arrange a marriage just before the meeting if you like. There would be one criteria: you'll need to bring a partner. Marriage is kind of fun, isn't it? So we're going to talk about marriage, but we're going to particularly share with you some fabulous research that has made a huge impact in the world of marriage, and I know you'll enjoy it and find it helpful. But today, this next part, we're going to particularly home right in now on families, and I want to just introduce. This was a study by Nick and Nancy Stenay. I've met this couple, and also Joe and Alice Beam. And it was a study commenced way back in 1974. By 1999, over 14,000 families had contributed to the study through interviews, observations and questionnaires. Now, when we study families, there are a variety of ways the social scientists will do that. It can be by survey, or more qualitative research is where they do an interview and ask you questions, or what they might do is actually come and live with you and your family and observe how you operate as a family. Now, I must confess, if I had somebody in a white coat in my family watching how I'd performed, I would be the husband. I would be the ultimate father. But they reckon that the suggestion is that very quickly you just get on with normal life, even though you've got somebody watching you. But anyway, they did a whole variety of ways of studying these families. And they were from 24 countries from around the world. So this wasn't just the US or Australian study, it was right across a whole range of countries. And let's just see what emerged. And this is what they said: being a healthy family is more than being without problems. Strong families have lots of problems, just like everyone else. To be a strong family is not to be without challenges. It is much more. It is the presence of guidelines for living and the ability to deal effectively with its life-centered challenges when they arrive. And so when we picture a healthy family, we're not looking at one that's got no problems and everything's perfect. No, it's the way they deal with what life dishes up. They found there were 6 qualities of healthy families. What's number 1? Here it is. The first one was commitment. Right across the board, these thousands of families, they discovered that a healthy family will always have a strong sense of commitment. And they said commitment creates the warm, loving, accepting environment in which families grow. Now, if there are young people here last night, this will remind you, we looked at Robert Sternberg's triangular theory of love. He said there were 3 core components to love. Do you remember what they were? Commitment, intimacy, and passion. And a family needs commitment to grow in a healthy way. It offers a harbour that shelters family members from the destructive forces of fear, anxiety, rejection and loneliness. And so when our children can grow up with an awareness that they're...
Just mention that.
Oh yeah, on here. Yeah, this is your little worksheet. Thank you again to Chris and Marlene and the helpers. So if you wish to take a few notes, that little sheet will take you through. So number 1, and we should have put A, B, C, D, but 1, let's have a look what they are. Number 1, at the commitment to your marriage. So the 1 on your title page is commitment, and then the first one, commitment to your marriage. At the heart of commitment to the family unit is the dedication to the marriage relationship, Stenay's found. Kathy Simon said the greatest gift the father can give his children is a happy marriage. And so first up, under commitment, we've got commitment to marriage. That strong sense of commitment to marriage. Number 2, commitment to each individual. A commitment to each individual in the family. Each person forms a part of the family and each person is precious, Stenay said. And we would sort of assume that in a family we're going to, each family member will be precious, but we know that some children grow up in a family where they don't feel that particular thing. This kind of commitment helps everyone in the family feel worthwhile and secure. And all our children especially value understanding and acceptance. Understanding and acceptance, but acceptance doesn't necessarily equal agreement, and acceptance doesn't necessarily equal approval. So we can say, I'm trying to understand, but I don't agree. I accept you and love you, but I don't approve of what you're doing. Members of strong families express their commitment to another not just in words, but through investments of time and energy. And so this sense of commitment just evades families and goes right through. It's active and obvious. Okay, number 3, commitment to putting first things first. This is a toughie. In our society where we're always rushing, think of the age of the stagecoach. If you miss the stagecoach, well, you're caught one next month. We go crook if we miss a green light, don't we? We get in a panic. It's a pace of life. And stopping to put first things first. Strong families realise that the family comes first and don't allow other aspects of life, no matter how important they are, to dilute that commitment. And so our family recognise that, hey, this family is number one and we're going to put everything first. No earthly goal or pursuit justifies losing one's families today. I don't think I have the quote here, but I have one from a lady who was in business, and she describes how she and her husband built a business and it was thriving, it was going very, very well. And she said, we invested heavily in this business, and then when we got to our 40s, we looked back and realised that we had a fabulous business, but we had no family. And they'd invested so heavily, this was their focus, this was their world, that the family drifted away. Commitment to honesty. They discovered that in healthy families there's this real sense of commitment to honesty. Healthy families exhibit a commitment to speak the truth. They know they can rely on each other's word. There's that sense of trust. Sharon Hart Morris, in a great little book called Safe Haven Marriage, describes the core to intimacy for marriage, and the first one is trust. Intimacy is built on trust, and it's the same in a family, that sense of trust that we can rely on each other's word. Sorry, I'll try and avoid that. Commitment to family traditions. This might come as a surprise to you, but sometimes we don't realise the value of little traditions. And this keeps coming out in varieties of, in other research. When our kids were small, we had just had 2 kids, Kelly and Jaith. When they were small, on Friday night was a bit special, so they had to have tea in the dark, and I mean serious, this is tea in the dark. No light at all. So any light coming through under the door, socks, blankets, those sausage things, those whinge, that, and covered it. And we had tea in the dark, and I used to say to my wife, my tea's here, yeah, there it is, there, spaghetti. So, and they'd have those little floating candles, and we had tea by floating candles. And I used to think, really, do we really have to do this, And what I didn't realise at the time, this was this little family tradition that become anchors for families. I'll tell you another story. A father wrote this fabulous article where he described how when his boys were growing up, they used to save to go to the snow. And as you and I know, it's not cheap to go down to the snow, and they didn't have a lot of money, and so they'd save to go take their teenage boys down to the snow. And he describes how when he was growing up through those years, his friends would turn up and say, hey Bob, come and have a look at the new pool. Come and have a look at the new car. Hey, come and have a look at the new house extensions. And he said he often felt this, he said, I should just, that's what we should do. We should build a pool. We should buy a new car, and that tension, He said, no, we just regularly went to the snow. And then he describes this. He said, when my kids were 19, 20, 21, 22, my friends used to come around, the friends who had the new car and the house extensions. And they'd look and they'd say, look at your kids. Here they all are, sitting around with their friends, laughing about snow. I've got no idea where my kids are. And he commented about the value of those regular little family tradition of going to the snow. It was just a regular little thing, but it wasn't the snow per se. It was that anchoring, that act that said to the family, we are special, we are together, and it becomes a fab. So if you've got some neat little tradition, don't minimise it. If you haven't got one, build one. If every birthday you celebrate in some special way. When you just find little family traditions, because they're very, very meaningful. Let's not minimise them. Family traditions serve an important role in family cohesiveness. They build an awareness of the unique and loving bond of each family member to the other. So these are some of the statements from the study. And finally, commitment to the long haul. Commitment to the long haul. And what they mean by that is they know that families will say, hey, we're in this for keeps. Strong families who clearly reveal that commitment is for the life of the family. They have an expectation that their family will endure. And so a core part of this family health was this sense of we are committed to each other, we're committed to this family, every member of the family, we're going to stay together and we're going to anchor together and celebrate life together. So it's exciting. Number 2, what do you think number 2 is? Here we go. Express affection and appreciation. Express affection and appreciation. We're going to move along fairly quickly, so here we go. Number 1. I've had a couple of statements first. Expressions of appreciation and affection permeated relationships within strong families. They let each other know on a daily basis that each is appreciated. Healthy families express appreciation and affection, a blend of both intellect and emotion. Interesting. Now, what we're going to touch on here, of course, is our different personalities. And some of us are very warm, we love to hug and hold and touch and we kiss and we there's a lot of kind of physical affection. Some of us are a little bit kind of different. That's not quite our thing. And so, we're kind of a little bit over here on the continuum. But whatever we are, whoever we are, we need to let our families know that we love them in a language that speaks their language. How many of you are familiar with the 5 love languages? You've all heard of Gary Chapman's work. All right. So some of us let's see if we can remember what they are. What's one of them? Words of affirmation. Touch, love the touch one. Gifts. Quality time, gifts. Acts of service. For those of you who aren't familiar, have a look. It's a great little study. What he found is we tend to have a love language that speaks particularly to our heart. And what he also discovered is we tend to express the love to our partner the way we want it to express to us. We've got to learn to find our partner's language in our kids. But we need to find ways. Healthy families express appreciation and affection. So here's a few things that Stene found. Express often you are a person of worth and dignity. I'm interested in you and I'm aware of your positive qualities. I affirm who you are as well as what you've done. See, a lot of kids get affirmed for what they do. Johnny, you did a good job of that. Honey, you made a good job of that. You've done a good job. And it's always associated to jobs. What we need to convey to our kids is, hey, you are beautiful, you are fabulous, you are the best, you are great, irrespective of what their job is, so they know that if they fail at a job, they're still okay. Appreciation and affection are so crucial to strong families. Not everyone knows how to express them in productive and beneficial ways. And so it's kind of a challenge for us to find ways that work for our families and express. Okay, number 1, dig for diamonds. So these are a few things that Stene found what healthy. Dig for diamonds. What do we mean by that? You and I go out west here to the mining. Where's Hobbo? We did the trip out west, mate, with the kids. We went to the mining town. When you go out to the mines, they have these massive machinery, huge machines, right? And they carry a huge amount of dirt, rocks and dirt, and they take it back to wherever they take it to, sift it all out. Yay, a diamond. And in families, sadly, a lot of people focus heavily on the dirt. My word, look at that truckload of dirt you got in the bedroom there, And they focus on the dirt. And he says, no, dig for diamonds. And when you and I find a diamond in our family, we highlight that and we celebrate that. And we affirm the diamonds instead of the dirt. Number 2, we affirm our children verbally. Honey, you did a good job of that. You did a great job of that. We let our kids know just how special they are, and our partners. We're going to talk this afternoon about the significance of affirmation for couples. Expect children to be affectionate and appreciative. I stayed with my son and his wife last night, that little 2.5-year-old Sammy, and Samantha. And she ran out this morning to me and grabbed me round the leg. It's quite interesting, a child's world that size. Look up, and she grabbed me round the leg and hugged me leg, because that's what she could reach. And it's just just fabulous the way kids express it. Number 4, share humour and playfulness. Share humour and playfulness. We need to have more fun in life. And some of us, again, do that more easy than others. We feel happy with humour and play. I understand a university professor was told he was far too serious in his lectures and he needed to lighten up a bit. They said, why don't you tell a joke? So he bought himself a book of jokes. He'd come out and stand in front of the lecture. The joke for today is... And he'd read the joke, close the book. Now let's get on with the lecture. I had no idea. Number 5, purposely encourage affection and appreciation. We're going to talk a bit more this afternoon about that, particularly in marriage. But in our families, have some fun, all right? Have some fun with the family. set up a few tricks and, have some fun, lots of laughs. Number 6, accept expressions of appreciation gracefully. People, I've discovered through my experience that often we're good at giving gifts, sometimes not so good at receiving gifts. I remember a particular family, I'm not sure why I was there, but it was Mum's birthday. And Dad and the boys, 3 little boys, just little guys, they'd prepared a present for Mum. And the boys had wrapped it up. So you what boys wrap it up, there's sticky tape everywhere and the paper's all crooked, they'd love Mum and they'd written this stuff. And they proudly come out with this little present. They're going to give to Mum this little present, And Mum's then, Dad kind of comes out and the 3 little boys, and it's kind of be special, And as I watched Mum, just at that time when they put the present on the table, Mum said, "Oh, hang on, I think someone's left the door open." And she went over and shut the door, and I watched the little boys' faces, and their little faces just sunk. And Dad just sort of rolled his eyes. That special moment was gone. That just when Mum should have gone, "For me? Wow, you kid, oh, look at this, so beautifully wrapped," and got some excitement about it. Mum kind of just, this kind of doesn't. Now, it doesn't seem much, but little moments like that are so special for kids. And I often think it's a bit like the gospel, we need to receive it with joy, the good news of Jesus, and gifts of time and fun, we need to receive them as well as we give them. All right, let's move on. Number 3. Communicate positively. Number 3, communicate positively. That suggests, of course, that we communicate negatively. Yeah. You and I know, of course, that it's impossible not to communicate. We are always communicating, even if we think we're sitting in silence. I saw this little cartoon just recently where this guy says, they're out fishing with his mate, and he says, "I'm thinking of divorcing my wife. She hasn't spoken to me for 2 months." And the other guy says, "Think carefully about that. Partners like that are hard to find." Another guy said, "My wife thinks she's giving me she's punishing me when she gives me the silent treatment." Yeah. I did a course for 23 weeks in communication and relationship skills. It's kind of fun. And the group leader at the start said this. She said, "When we're small, we learn to tip up our bottle to get the juice, our milk. And we learn to push our little buggy around. We learn to kick off our nappy when they get a bit wet so we can run faster. And we learn to talk, but we don't learn to communicate. That's a skill we have to be taught." And so many of us, we just grow up, we learn communication skills from our parents primarily, but where did they get it from? Their parents. And so often we kind of do things wrong. You watch 2 people having an argument, what happens to the volume of their voice? It goes up, all right? Have they moved away so they need to talk louder? No, they're still same position, so their voice goes up. So what's going on? And when the saucepan flies past, then you think, yeah, I think I'm getting the message, right? We raise our voice. Why? Because we feel as if we're not being heard, but we don't say that, do we? We don't say, "Honey, just now I don't think you're hearing me real carefully. Can I just try that again?" We say, "No," and we just go. And next thing, we're louder and louder and louder. We do crazy things, right? Why do we keep doing things that don't work? We're going to have some fun this afternoon talking about marriage, but communication is a fun journey. So let's have a look at a few things. Good communication helps to promote mental health, build belonging, and ease family frustrations by increasing the family's effectiveness in solving problems. So this is healthy families, right? And they need to solve problems, so allow enough time. When it comes to conflict, here's just a few things. Allow enough time to do it. Often we're racing out the door and we try and solve a problem. Number 2, listen well. Now, how many ears God gave us? 2. How many mouths? Okay, let's get the ratio right, all right? 2 ears, 1 mouth. We need to keep the ratio right. And one of the hardest things we can do is learn to listen. We don't do that well, and we do whole workshops on learning to listen well. Number 3, check it out and get it right. So often we think we've got it, but we don't have it right, and we need to check, honey, have I just got you right? Get inside the other person's world, keep kind and respectful, and number 6, keep it honest. And these are a few reflections on conflict. We might talk a little bit more about this afternoon, particularly in marriage. But good communication is really vital. It's the way God's given to us to build intimacy, to build relationships, and the skill of communication is one that we can learn. Guys, this is a bit of a challenge for us. Girls do it well. Ladies, do you realise that you've got 20,000 different words, hand expressions, facial expressions that you use in a day? You use 20,000, right? You know how many a guy has? 12,000. That's why at the end of the day, he wants to just watch telly, and you're going, because you've got 8,000 left over, he's used up all his 12, right? And he's going, why doesn't she shut up? Okay. Ladies, you love to talk, you're designed to it. Guys, live with it, it's normal, it's all okay, right? A woman thrives on communication because it feeds her female psyche. She's designed to talk. Ladies, it's okay, your brain's designed that way, you just keep talking, all right? Men, live with it, it's okay. Here's the good news, man. When your wife talks to you, she's not talking to you for advice. She doesn't want you to fix it. Ladies, I want you to know that's the normal thing for guys. We love fixing things. So if you make some comment about something, we'll want to try and fix it. You've got to let us do that. We've got to nut that out together, okay? So we might talk a bit more about that this afternoon if we get time. Okay, a few more suggestions from John Gottman. Keep a gentle tone of voice. That's going to really come to the fore this afternoon. Keep a gentle tone of voice. The Bible says a soft answer turns away wrath. So true. Number 2, listen to understand, not just to give advice. And number 3, I think there's number 3, encourage all family members to share what they are thinking and feeling. And so as families, this is an area that we can work on. All right, we're just watching our clock. Let's keep going. Okay, we'll come back. Handling conflict. I think what we might do is just skip through this and we'll go on to the next one. All right, here we go. Number 4, spend time together. Here's the challenge. People say, well, it's not so much quantity time, it's quality time that I have. You can only have quality time if you've got quantity time, right? They really do go together. And you and I need to spend time together, especially if our family members have the love language of quality time. Spend time together. And Stanae found these words when our little clicker here is just a little bit intermittent. Okay, some key benefits. It provides opportunities for family communication. There's quite a bit of research at the moment showing the powerful benefits of at least one meal together a week without the TV. So many of us sit around the telly we watch the news. That's a bit of a guy thing. We love information. And the good news is now, guys, it scrolls along the bottom, isn't it? It's just wonderful. We get all this because we like little snippets of information. By the way, ladies, remember that for a man, ladies, you thrive on communication. Do you know what a man thrives on? Affirmation. Affirmation. Woman thrives on communication, man thrives on affirmation. Ladies, you tell your husband, honey, nobody mows the lawn like you do in Caboolture. All right? You'll be out at night with a torch, mowing it, you know. Right? We thrive on affirmation. So you tell us we're doing a good job and we'll just love it. Honey, nobody makes a bed like you do in Caboolture. Now look, if the bed's a little bit crooked, the pillow's not quite right and Teddy isn't in the middle, don't worry about it. Tell him he's doing a good job, because you need to say, honey, that's a disaster. Leave me to making the bed. You got the bed making for the rest of your marriage, right? Honey, you're doing a good job with the bed. He'll make it for you. In fact, he'll make all of the bedroom beds for you. Well, dreams are free. All right, number 2. It helps combat isolation and loneliness, and we know what loneliness does. It'll kill you. Shared family time. It's about connecting. Number 3. When my little machine works. It helps provide family identity. Now, just spending time itself doesn't necessarily build identity, it's what you do with it. I had the joy of meeting with quite a number of pastors' wives some time back, clergy wives, and I asked them 2 questions. What is it that you want most of all from your marriage? And the second question is, what do you need most of all right now? Over 80% of pastors' wives, do you know what they put? More time, more time, more time. The question I would have liked to have asked after that is, if you had more time, what would you do with it? I know what pastors would do. They'd find another Bible study. They'd find something to do, maybe. See, you and I think when God comes, he'll say, did you have enough of everything? And we'll say, no, we didn't have enough time. We've all got the same amount of time. We need to do what we do with money. We don't tell our money we've got to tell our money where to go, not ask where it's gone. Tell your money where to go, don't ask it where it's gone. The same with time. We are in charge of our time, and we need to do our very best to make it available to each other. Okay. Share meal times as much as you can. Research is quite clear. Share meal times together as much as you can. 2 years ago at our National Christian Family Conference in Sydney, we had a number of specialists come in on dealing with adolescence and cyber issues and the digital age. It's pretty scary, the old digital age. Believe it or not, serious, when I first went to primary school, Des, I learnt to write with a quill and ink. Dip the old pen in the ink. Sorry, young people, I need to explain that. I'll draw a picture for you later if you like. Okay? Serious. Then we went to the biro. Woo, the biro, The digital age. And you can jump on YouTube. There's a neat little clip. This lady was so frustrated with trying to get her kids to come to tea. They were playing with their iPads, iPhones. She went to someone who invented a little thing, and you know those big timber salt shakers where you go to a restaurant, would you like some salt with that? And they've got this great long, I'd love to build a really long one. You want some salt with that? She put inside that a mechanism so that when she turned it, everything in digital in the house got switched off. iPads, iPhones, TV, everything, right? And there's this neat little clip where Dad's watching TV and the kid's on an iPad and someone else is on an iPhone playing video games, and Mum says, tea time, nobody moves. Tea time. Okay. So when they find she's heading for, she just goes, everything goes off. Dad's watching the TV, he just cuts loose. He's down underneath the TV trying to work out what. One of the kids literally throws his phone across the floor, and it's just bedlam. And they're already running detox programs for digital stuff, for adolescents. Digital detox programs. So we're getting hooked on the digital world. It's a killer for this kind of stuff. So we've got a family trying to say, hey, let's have a detox. Number 2, play together, worship together, do housework together, and find special events together. Your kids may not be into ballet or the opera, but find some way of getting them out and going to some fun times with them. So they're just a few things that came through the research. You can dream up your own. You've got to find a way of having some fun together. All right. And keep it fun. Healthy families give generously their lives to each other, and that is one important reason why they're so strong. So it just kept coming through the research. Healthy families are invested in each other. They're invested in having fun, having time together, affirming each other, communicating well. These are things that we can learn to do. How are we doing? Ready? Okay, let's do it because we've got watching the clock. Encourage and nurture spiritual well-being. Now, this study wasn't of Christian families. It included Christian families. But what they discovered is that right across these families, they found there was a strong emphasis on something greater than themselves. Even though not all the strong families in the Family Strength Research Project share the Christian faith, it's amazing that the need for spirituality and a belief in a higher power was evident in them all. You and I are designed to respond to somebody greater than ourselves. I'm convinced it's in our DNA. And when you and I respond to a God, our God, something happens for our families. The benefits of building a family on a spiritual foundation, a sense of meaning and purpose. We know who we are. We know who we are. We know where we're from, what we're doing here, where we're going. It provides incredible direction for our lives. And as a family, we know who we are when we have that sense of meaning and purpose. It provides guidelines for living. You and I have quality and values. Number 3, a sense of freedom and peace. The gospel is good news. It provides us a sense of great peace and freedom. We share that with our family because there's so much guilt and sadness and anxiety in the world around us. We're going quick. Number 4, provides a positive, confident outlook. A confident, positive outlook. These are just some of the benefits of a spiritual connection that we're familiar with and we've all experienced. Number 5, provides support from like-minded people. I've got some good news for you here, people, this morning. You who have come to church here today, to this workshop here today, as you've sung and as you've joined in a spirit of prayer and connecting with each other, you are building buffers against mental illness. Good news, you may not have known that. Research is showing that when we get together and we do praise and prayer and fellowship, we are building buffers against mental illness. Now, that doesn't mean you may not have to deal with a mental illness, right? Don't get me wrong, but they're showing that this, through research. Several years ago, Martin Seligman was elected as the world leader for the American Psychological Association, the largest association in the world. And he was out gardening and he used to relax through gardening. And he was pulling up all these weeds, and his 5-year-old daughter was coming around, and she was picking up the weeds and putting them on her head and dancing around and he was getting a bit cranky. He was getting frustrated, this little girl, and he said, "Hey, get back inside." And he said, "When I focused on a job, I focused and I didn't want any distraction." This little girl went back inside. Then she came out and she said, "Daddy," "Yes." "You know, between the ages of 3 and 5, I used to whinge all the time." "Yes." "Well, I stopped being a whinger, and I think you could too." And he said, "As I was planning to take the inaugural speech at this huge psychological session with his vote," he said, "I thought about what my daughter said." And Martin Seligman made a huge contribution to psychology when he said to all these psychologists, he said, "You know, we as psychologists know all about depression, suicide, anxiety, loss and grief, but we know nothing about happiness and joy and gladness." And he says, "It's time we did." And there was a huge shift in the research in psychology. Several years ago, I went to a happiness conference in Sydney. Over 2,000 people attended. Happiness conference. And now it's called positive psychology, and they are studying things like prayer, affirmation, gratitude. They did a huge study on gratitude and showing what happens to people, and they compared people who whinged and kept a record of all the things that they were mad about as compared to people who showed gratitude, and the difference was so significant. It was amazing. Not surprising in Psalms, give thanks with a grateful heart. And the power of gratitude is huge. So let's not underestimate what we're doing here today, where we share with like-minded people, and of course it provides access to the power of God. All right, we're nearly done. Strong families share their spiritual values through traditions and rituals, religious heritage, that's what we're doing, prayer and meditation, everyday life, study, and avoiding dissension. So this is what came through again in the research. So they're just some of the ways that we share spiritual values. And finally, I think we've got one more. Cope with stress and crisis. Cope with stress and crisis. As I said, healthy families aren't exempt from stress and crisis, but they've developed some kind of way of dealing effectively with that. Strong families have discovered some important insights into dealing with stress. If you would like to make a bit more study of this, you might like to look up Dr. Arch Hart's book, With Stress, and the connection with adrenaline. And often stress is an issue closely connected with adrenaline. While this is not the part of this study, but you and I need to be sensitive to our stress levels and lower our stress by thinking about what we do that raises our adrenaline. Stress is a bit like a rubber band. A rubber band is designed to stretch, but if we keep it stretched, what happens? It deteriorates, right? A rubber band has to come back again. And you and I can have stressful moments, but we've got to find ways of bringing ourselves and our family back and calming it down. And if we keep the adrenaline going high all the time, and I met with a group of camp managers last year. These are managers who run campgrounds, a lot of stress, and they were describing their kind of life, and it can be very stressful. People coming in at all hours and all sorts of demands. And we talked about the importance of lowering adrenaline that keeps our stress high. And I said to these guys, what do you do to calm down if you're really stressful? And what do you do to calm and steady your heart? You know, and one guy says, I get out my motorbike. And I just roar around on my motorbike and I just cut loose and I'm screaming through the trees. And I have wonderful times roaring around my motorbike. And I said, what's that doing to your adrenaline? And he thought about it for a while and he says, I've gone from that stress to this stress. Yep. right? We need to find ways of calming. Try to keep things in perspective. Now, it's not always easy, but we need to try and ask ourselves, is this the worst thing that could happen just now? Is this really the end of the world? Seek strength from God. We know that. We as God people know what it is to find strength with God. Focus on something bigger than yourself, something outside of yourself. Make use of humour. Don't just buy a book of jokes, right? But just hang around with happy people, right? And have some laughs. Take one step at a time, refresh and restore. And for those of us who are familiar with the Sabbath, this wonderful day of rest and restoration, it's a part of, I think, God's design to deal with stress, to slow us down and say, hey, one day, just stop. Just stop and celebrate the fact that all the work is done. It's okay. Now, some of us I know are really stressful on Sabbath. We jet around and doing lots of stuff. But let's find ways in which we can chill and calm and settle down. Worry has been likened to a rocking chair. You make a lot of motion but don't get anywhere. And I think that's true. All right. So, we're done. See the roses among the thorns. Work together with each other's strengths. Seek help. People, just there, it's a sign of strength. Can I encourage you to feel okay about seeking help for when we're struggling as families? The research shows that it's a sign of strength to seek help, not a sign of weakness. If you and I, as members of this church board, noticed that all the lights started blinking and smoking and not working, there's a pretty good chance we'd feel fairly comfortable about ringing an electrician and say, excuse me, sir, but my lights aren't working, could you come and check them? And if we're driving our car and bits have fallen off and there's smoke and, nothing works properly and you've got to throw out an anchor to stop it, it's breaking down, do we sort of sneak into a mechanic and say, shh, don't tell anyone, but can you fix my car? Don't tell anyone. We just roll to a mechanic and say, fix my car. When we break down, when we start blinking and not doing so well, we'll be right, we'll just press on, we'll be okay. At great risk. And healthy families, the research of the healthy families admit to and seek help with problems. Okay, open up channels and go with the flow. All right, so here they are. Number one, commitment. Here's the test, Steve. Where's Steve? Sweaty palm, Steve. It's the time for the test. Put your notes down. All right, here we go, mate. Number one, commitment. Number two, express affection and appreciation. Number three, communicate positively. Number four, spend time together. Number five, encourage spiritual being, cope with stress and crisis. Larry was a truck driver, but he always wanted to be a pilot. He used to sit and watch the planes fly over his house, and he thought, that's what I want to be. So he went down to the aviation place. He wanted to join the RAF and learn to be a pilot. He signed up, and sadly, he discovered that his eyes weren't up to scratch. His eyes weren't good enough, and so he wasn't able to be a pilot. So once again, he'd sit in his garden chair and watch the planes fly overhead. And one day, he had an idea. It wasn't a good idea, but he had an idea. He and his partner went down to some place that kind of sold excess Army, Navy stuff. And he bought a whole load of weather balloons. Now, these aren't your ordinary party balloons. These are about 1 metre across. They're used for assessing weather. Somehow, illegal, I think, he got hold of a whole lot of these balloons. He got some acetylene and gas bottles, took them home, and he lashed his garden chair to his four-wheel drive, and then he tied all these balloons, after he'd filled them with gas, to his chair. He got a little BB gun and a packed lunch and thought what he would do is just float up, a few hundred feet into the air, experience what it was to fly for a little while, and then he'd shoot 1 or 2 balloons and he'd just calmly drift down. Reality was a little different. When he cut the ropes holding his chair, he shot up like a rocket. True story, shot up like a rocket. And he kept going to 11,000 feet. When he got up to 11,000 feet, he was so petrified of shooting any balloon because he thought who knows where he'd go that he just sat there petrified and drifted along and finally drifted into the incoming flight path into a major airport in the USA, and a Pan Am pilot radioed tower and said, I've just passed a man in a chair at 11,000 feet with a gun. Well, somehow they got up a helicopter and somehow got Larry down to ground. And when he got there, the police were waiting for him and handcuffed him. And as they were leading him away, a journalist said, "Larry, why did you do it?" And he paused and turned and looked and said, "A man just can't sit around." A man just can't. Oh, I love Larry. Larry, the lawn chair pilot. Larry is remembered as the lawn chair pilot. For what will you and I be remembered? For what will you and I be remembered? Larry was remembered as the lawn chair pilot. For what will you and I be remembered? I would love to be remembered as someone who made a commitment to my family. I'd love to be remembered as someone who shared some affection and appreciation, had a whole lot of fun, and tried to make a difference to family. And I pray that that'll be your memory as well. Would you join me as we pray? Lord, we thank you for family. And all of us here today have grown up in some family. It may be a little bit different to the family, to the person sitting beside us, behind us. Some of us would have grown up in a large family, some in a small. But we can look back and we've got some good memories. We might have some memories that we'd like to rewrite. Maybe some of our family experiences have left us hurting a little. We just want to grasp, Lord, this morning the assurance that you are our Father, and the image of the Father is a very real and positive one, and we grasp it this morning. We thank you that as your sons and daughters, we and your family are not thrown out. We are accepted, loved, cherished, and you've shown powerful ways to let us know that. So much so that you sent Jesus, who said nothing can separate us from your love, and we grasp that again this morning and thank you. We just pray that we'll make a commitment to sustain our families, to be invested in our families, to do all we can to make them everything they can be. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.